WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge.
Good morning and welcome to Hometown Today on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. Hometown Today is presented by Professional Floor Covering, your store for floors and so much more. They can help you out with, of course, your flooring. They've got carpet, hardwood, laminate, LVP, tile, stone. They can help you with countertops in your kitchen or bathroom. They can also help you out with cabinets in your kitchen and in the bathroom. You want a nice bathroom that you can just kind of relax in, and their team can help you out with a nice new shower or tub. Let them design you a shower that's just super relaxing and kind of can act as an oasis. From color and material choice to size and arrangement, there's a lot of design choices that could be made before beginning the remodeling process. Maybe you want to think about doing some glass panels, glass doors. That can be a way to give your bathroom a little bit more luxurious and spacious feel. Or if you're looking for a whole new tiling, just retile the shower. You'd be amazed just how much of a difference that can make. Or if it's getting tougher to get in and out of that tub, we've talked about it. They do those tub to shower conversions. They can do like just a no lip at all, nice smooth surface. They can do just a little 1-inch lip if you want a little lip there and you can get over that. They can help you out there as well. Visit them today at 713 Park Avenue in Beaver Dam. You can also visit them online at PROFLR.com. Happy Thursday. Happy Packers Day. Looking forward to the game tonight. We'll have it right here on WBEV 95.3 beginning at 5 p.m. for the pregame coverage. Looking forward to seeing how the Pack play tonight. Somebody was asking me right before the show, what do you think? You feeling good? For the most part, yeah. Well, curious to see how this is going. It was a good sign the way we played against Detroit last week, but was it a fluke? I think tonight will tell us. So looking forward to that. But here on Hometown Today, we're happy to welcome back a guest that we haven't had on in a little bit. We were just talking about, man, has it really been as long as we thought? Really happy to be visiting with Will Fullwitter from the Dodge County UW Extension. Will, great to have you back.
Great to be back.
I know we were just we were catching up, and it kind of felt like we just left off, picked up where we left off, like we had just seen each other a month ago, and then we got to talk about it. Boy, has it basically been since the beginning of the year? So it's been a little bit since we've gotten to chat.
Yeah, it was a lot colder then, and a lot's happened.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of year has gone by already, so excited to catch up with you. And we got a couple of things we're going to get into today, but before we do that, for folks who maybe aren't familiar with you, talk a little bit about what your role is at UW Extension and what you do with it.
Yeah, so I'm the crops educator with UW Extension in Dane and Dodge County. So I cover both of those counties, and I work with farmers on a lot of on-farm research, trying to bring the research that UW does on its research stations, agricultural research stations, to the counties, and providing local data so that farmers can make decisions based off of their local context and not necessarily what's said, hundreds of miles away at an ag research station. So do that, working with farmers on that to bring that local data, and then also share that presenting at workshops and working with local farmer groups to kind of disseminate that information so farmers can make the best choices for their farms.
That's that educator side
yes.
of the role where you do a lot of research and things like that, but then you bring those results and those findings and educate whoever may benefit from that education. So we're happy to have you here. And one of the things we want to talk about today that you work on, you got a number of projects that you're working on, but one of the things we want to talk about, and we talked about this a little bit last time you were on, but it's been a while, and we kind of want to revisit because it is something that's relatively new in this field, and certainly since we last talked, there's been some developments, and that is what we're talking about is agrivoltaics. And I know the first time you brought it up to me, I said, agrivoltaics, is that something they're learning at Harry Potter school? Talk to us a little bit about what that is.
It's exactly that. It is totally magical. No, it is the attempt to co-locate agriculture and solar energy production. So there's a lot of solar energy that has been installed in Wisconsin and is planned to be installed, and we are within Extension are trying to give research-backed information to how can we continue to farm under these solar utility scale sites where they're often going in on farmland. And so it's taking potentially away farmland from our counties and our towns, but can we kind of co-locate these two? Can we think about ways that we can continue to farm and kind of get the best of both worlds, both energy production and continuance of agriculture?
When we talk about agrivoltaics, so you're talking about solar and its relationship with agriculture and agricultural land. I think when you talk solar and you talk agriculture, I think there's probably people kind of have a preconceived picture of what that looks like. Is this different than traditional solar farms? Is it the same thing? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, and I think that the term of solar farm is a bit of a misnomer because it's not really a farm. It is solar panels on what was previously agricultural land. And one of the reasons why it's going in on agricultural land is because people are like, why not just throw it on top of a Walmart where it's not taking away ag land? Well, that's quite expensive, and it's cheaper to do it on ag land, and you can have a lot larger of an area that's going on and kind of more so easily reach economies of scale. And there's also a heat effect that happens on roofs that would decrease the efficiency of the panels. So going out on farmland is a bit more of an option there. And from the kind of what does it look like now perspective is there's not a ton of agriculture going on when we talk about a solar farm. It's likely a pollinator planting or kind of a vegetation, just a kind of way to manage vegetation so we don't have 8-foot tall weeds growing there. So they plant some sort of mix of things to keep down weeds. Maybe it's more of a kind of prairie planting, a shorter grass prairie underneath the panels so it doesn't grow up above and shade those panels out. And that's just kind of left there to be managed initially a little bit more at the beginning as it's being established, but over time it kind of becomes less and less managed as that prairie or that pollinator planting gets established and will be there for the 25 to 30 years. That is the duration of the lease for the solar land.
Gotcha. Talking with Will Fullwitter from the Dodge County UW Extension. He is the regional crops educator. When we talk about solar and agriculture, obviously here in Wisconsin, there's a lot of strong opinions. This has been a very hot topic over the last years. There's a lot of opinions on both sides. There's opinions about the issues with using solar on agricultural land. There's the other side of the benefits of it. If you've driven around the state a decent amount, there's a pretty good chance you've probably come across an area where you see a lot of the, say no to solar, say yes to solar signs. When it comes to that conversation, can you talk a little bit about the role that you and the UW Extension play in that conversation? Because it's not really necessarily that you're taking one side, quote unquote, or the other. Talk a little bit about the UW Extension's role in that conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. We're not here to say yes to one side or the other. I'm not going to take one of those flags and plant it in my yard, that's for sure, or in the yard of our office. The goal is really to give research-backed information for what is possible, right? I'm the crops educator. I'm here to work in the agricultural realm. So when I see ag land that is being occupied by a different use and is kind of converting from an agricultural land to a different use case, it's like, okay, how can we continue ag underneath these solar panels? How can we continue to have this in agriculture? And like I said earlier, kind of try and reap the benefits of both. Because there are places where this will go in on land, and we're not trying to say, oh, let's do this so that it then makes it easier, greases the wheels for solar to go in on more land. That's not what we're trying to do at all. It's like, okay, it is going to go in on land. How can we continue agriculture? And the way that we do that is through research, and that's what UW Extension is all about. It's about taking the research that's being done at the UW, like I said earlier, and extending it, as per the name, to communities, or in the case of this research, really doing it out in the communities themselves. And UW Extension is kind of taking the reins on some of that research in agrivoltaics.
Talking with Will Fullwitter. He is the crops educator with the Dodge County UW Extension, also with Dane County UW Extension. Lots more to talk about. We're going to get a little bit more into this and some of the other things going on over at UW Extension when we come back on Hometown Today from 95.3 WBEV. Welcome back to Hometown Today on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. Hometown Today is presented by Professional Floor Covering, also brought to you by McKinstry's Home Furnishings in downtown Beaver Dam. We are back with Will Fullwitter. He's the crops educator with Dodge County UW Extension. And right now we're talking about agrivoltaics, this kind of the relationship with agriculture and solar power, and being able to still conduct agriculture on these solar sites. And so we talked a little bit about what it is, but I have a number of questions about it, a little bit about what we know so far, what we're still trying to figure out. One of the things, obviously here in Wisconsin, you and I were just talking before we went on the air here this morning about the weather here. You know, we got teased with a little fall. Now we're going to jump back into summer for it looks like a week or two. So we get the full realm of seasons here. I mean, we truly get 4 seasons. We go from 95 degrees in July to -10 and 3 feet of snow in February. What role does the Wisconsin climate and Wisconsin's weather play in this conversation and the productivity and efficiency of agrivoltaics?
Yeah, so it plays a huge role, both on the productivity and the kind of the ability to conduct it year-round here. I think some of the most successful agrivoltaics sites are actually in the south and southwest, where the panels themselves are actually not quite as efficient because it's so hot. And so when you're growing something underneath the panels, like tomatoes or whatever, chili peppers or whatever, referring to mostly Arizona, where it is so hot that the plants growing off of there let off cool air, they kind of evaporate water as they're growing. And so that helps to cool the panels and make them more efficient. So there it makes a lot of sense. And the shade for those plants is good because it's so hot and so sunny down there. So there it makes a lot of sense. And then you have areas like Texas and other southern states that do a lot of sheep grazing under their solar panel installations. And because they don't really have a winter, they can go all year round without really a fear of destroying the vegetation that's there. And so they have generations of sheep that have lived and died and be born on these solar sites, which is really interesting. And so that's kind of this extensive ability to graze ad nauseum on these very large sites. Here in Wisconsin, it's a kind of a different story.
Yeah.
We have the ability to be more productive in our agriculture because our climate is more conducive to that. It's not as dry as it is in Arizona
we don't
and
face
in Texas.
that challenge like they do down in those areas.
Exactly. Our sunlight isn't quite as numerous, so to speak, as down there. So maybe our panels aren't getting as much sunlight, but they're also a little bit more efficient because it's not quite as hot. However, our pastures and our other forms of agriculture do really well in full sun here. The shading doesn't maybe do them as well as it does down in Texas and Arizona, where it's arid and they kind of are losing a lot of water. Here we have a lot of water. And so when we are preventing kind of that evaporation a little bit, or we're not giving it quite as much sun, it doesn't benefit the crops or the pastures as much as it would as in Texas or in Arizona. And we have winter, which we were talking about, Kale, you're not looking forward to, a long winter ahead. And one of the issues there is not quite the winter when the ground is frozen and animals on top of that ground are not doing damage to the plants, but kind of our mud seasons as we're transitioning into winter, and the ground is starting to freeze and thaw, and that water is moving in and out of the soil. And then, of course, the real mud season of March and early April, when it's people's least favorite season, I would say, here in Wisconsin. The winter's one thing, but then to just go and kind of roll in the mud for a month is not the most fun. And so when we have animals, livestock out on solar sites or any type of pasture during that time, they're really doing damage to the soil as they're compacting it, moving their hooves into it, and also destroying the pastures there. So a lot of times if people, not even in solar sites, or if they're just grazing on their pastures at home or on their farm, they take their animals off. They're either kicking them into the barn if they're feeding them out during the wintertime and they come in for the mud season, or they're moving on to a sacrifice pasture. On a solar site, that's not much of an option per se, because there's not really a sacrifice pasture, and seeding on solar sites is a lot more expensive than it is just on a pasture where you're not hindered in your ability to move a tractor through that site. And so it can be a lot more prohibitively expensive. So these sites that are really big require a lot of sheep to manage them properly, which is kind of the prevailing form of agrivoltaics that we see here in Wisconsin. And if we have a lot of sheep on those sites, the question is, where are they going in the wintertime? Are they being fed out on these solar sites? And then where are they going during the mud seasons when maybe we don't have big enough of a barn to house these livestock during that kind of no-go grazing season? So that's kind of some of the issues that have been occurring in the forms of agrivoltaics that we've seen. A lot of it is smaller sites that are starting to be grazed, that people are close by, the grazers that are able to kick their animals onto their own land and have those sacrificed pastures during mud season, and or have buildings available for them. So as we scale up, it'll become a bigger question.
And when you talk, and that's what you led right into my next question, and you kind of touched on it here. One of the things that I want to bring up is that I hadn't really considered is when we're having this conversation. There's kind of different levels of it. Can you talk a little bit, small scale versus utility scale? Talk a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So, there are different scales of solar installations. There's some that are, 7 acres, small little installation for a community, and then there's ones that are hundreds and hundreds of thousands of acres, right? So the scale is huge. The ways that they are permitted are also different. And the ability for a local community to have a say as to whether that installation occurs or not changes with that scale. So the larger they get, and these installations are often measured in megawatts, and there's about 7 to 7.5 acres per megawatt of installation. So once they get above, I think it's 50 megawatts, it kind of supersedes the ability of the local government organization to have a say into its permitting or not, and it goes to the state level.
Gotcha.
And that's the Public Services Council Committee, the PSC, that then is the one that grants that permit. So our large scale utility sites that are above like 350 acres or so, if we're doing the 7 times 50. Yeah.
Math, not my specialty either.
Mine neither. I'll stick to the crops. That then kind of goes to that state level where they're going to do a lot more of that process. So that whole process behind the scenes is it getting sited or not is changes with that scale. And then the vegetation management changes too. Like I mentioned earlier, when we're getting to larger and larger scales with more and more sheep, if we're going to use sheep grazing as a ways of vegetation management, it becomes some of these issues start to emerge of, do we have housing for these sheep in the wintertime? Where are they going in the wintertime? Or do we even have enough sheep to graze these sites? Because part of the role as a grazer, that's the person that runs the sheep, is to make sure that vegetation is below a certain height so that they're not shading out the panels. And if you have 500 acres and you only have X amount of sheep, that may not be enough to run across this 500 acres to get ahead of that grass before it starts to get really tall. That's an issue.
You talk about the sheep, and why sheep? Is there other possibilities for other types of livestock for grazing, and what challenges do those face?
Yeah, sheep are kind of what you see when you rarely do see animals grazing under solar panels, and the grazing aspect is kind of the easy button, so to speak. Crops and horticultural crops are kind of a whole nother issue, and that's a whole nother scale too. Grazing, like I said, is the easy button, and sheep are the easiest of easy buttons on this, which is not much of an easy button to begin with. There's lots of hoops to jump through. There's so many entities to talk to. But sheep are small. They can fit underneath the panels. They're lighter. They're smaller, so they don't pose as much of a risk to the panels. And they're shorter, so they're not going to go up and start to eat the side of the panel like maybe a cow would. But there are folks that have demonstrated the ability to do grazing with cattle. Brad Hines up at the University of Minnesota, so one of their ag research stations, is grazing dairy cattle underneath solar panels. He's looking at it mostly from an animal welfare lens of,
sure,
we've got shade here. If it's a really hot day, they can hang out under here and still have grazing to do. And he has a movable, kind of like a mobile shade unit that also happens to generate electricity, which is pretty slick. But then he's also got some stationary ones. And originally he lifted them 8 feet off the ground, which is much taller than, about 5 feet taller than they would normally be, to get them out of the reach of the cows.
Okay.
Then he noticed that they weren't really messing with them much. And so the next panel installation he did, it was just kind of normal, 3 or so feet off the ground, and they really didn't touch them. So I think there's a lot of theoretical fear there of they could destroy the panels, that there's not a ton of research there, but some of the anecdotal evidence is it's a possibility. We just have to, and this is a lot of the agrivoltaics work is make sure we're talking in the same language when it's agriculture and solar talking to each other, when they don't really have a shared language at the moment.
I know one of the possibilities that was looked at as well when you think about, a good smaller grazer is goats. Those come with their own funny little issue, though.
Those jokers like to jump.
They're very curious animals. They're
yeah.
sheep don't seem to be as curious for some reason.
No, and they're actually a different type of. They have a different feeding pattern. So sheep are grazers. They're gonna eat grass and things kind of on the soil surface, whereas goats in their curious nature are browsers, so they'll eat anything. It's shrubs or whatever, which is why they're great for clearing kind of forests of like an understory, getting rid of buckthorn or other invasive species, because they'll eat anything. They also like to jump over fences and onto maybe panels, so goats really not the best option. You'll find them nibbling stuff for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Talking with Will Fullwitter. He is the crops educator with Dodge County UW Extension. We've got plenty more to talk about. We've got to step out for a break, but we'll be back with more Hometown Today after this on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. And welcome back to Hometown Today on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. Hometown Today is presented by Professional Floor Covering, also brought to you by McKinstry's Home Furnishings in downtown Beaver Dam, where they invite you to check out their clearance corner, a whole department filled with exciting final clearance merchandise. Stop in today and experience a treasure hunt for bargains. Discontinued items and as-is merchandise all reduced to rock-bottom pricing. You can save big on mattress sets, end tables, coffee tables, chairs, and accessories. All these items are one of a kind. Visit the clearance corner and enjoy the savings at McKinstry's Home Furnishings in downtown Beaver Dam, where customers matter and quality counts. And don't forget, stop in and see them during the Chamber of Commerce Wine Tour next Friday, the 19th. So looking forward to that. We're going to rejoin Will Fullwitter from the Dodge County UW Extension here in just a few minutes. But before we do that, we've got a very special guest on the phone. She is practically royalty at this point. Excited to chat with my pal, the Pepper Queen, Diana Ogle. Diana, how are you, friend?
Well, I think I need a scepter and a crown, my friend. Good Lord.
You know, Diana, I have known you, I don't know how many years now. I'm honestly kind of surprised you don't already have those.
Absolutely. I think we've known each other about 20 years, my friend.
Yeah, man, it's been a long time. Well, I know I'm not going to keep you too long because I know you are a super busy lady this week. Super exciting day coming up on Saturday with Pepperfest.
Absolutely. This is the 12th annual. Can you imagine 12? Isn't that crazy? We started 13 years ago talking about this, and here we are. So
I know.
On Saturday at the Park Village Shopping Center, we're going to kick off about 9 a.m. We have got almost 100 vendors, my friend.
Wow.
We got people from Waukesha coming. We got people from up in Green Bay that are coming, Sheboygan. I mean, they're coming and said, we want to be a part of this Heritage Fest to honor this pepper that was brought here in the early 1900s as seeds by immigrants from Hungary. And it's, you know, honest to God, Kale, it's a family reunion for these people, and we just get to be a part of it by honoring that and putting peppers in everything we can think of. And, of course, Potosi is going to have their Beaver Dam Pepper Beer. And new this year, our good friends at Edwin Bricks are bringing Beaver Dam Pepper Wine.
That is awesome. So excited. I love seeing this grow every year and some of the new things, you know, more and more of the vendors. And now you've got the Beaver Dam Pepper Wine. Definitely looking forward to some more of that Potosi Beaver Dam Pepper Beer. Haven't had my share since last year Pepperfest. So looking forward to that. What else you got going on over there for Pepperfest? Because I know there's a lot more.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to have apple pepper pancakes that's served up by our friend Tim Welch at Lidkey Motors. He sponsors that. WDS has sponsored the chili cook-off. Allie Roth and her friends are going to be there doing that. We have Miss Wisconsin coming. Miss Newell will be there, and she will be doing the chili cook-off tasting for us. We've got Josh Tyjeski from Tyjeski. We got Dawn from Mayville. We've got Russ Krause, of course, our representative Mark Bourne is going to be there. They're going to be doing the chili cook-off. Beaver Dam's Longest Pepper, Dodge County Center for the Arts are going to be selling pies. You know, you can already pre-order these Beaver Dam apple pepper pies. I was talking with Stephanie Bradley yesterday, and Bradley Finishing is one of our sponsors. She said, I've already pre-ordered my pie. I got to get it now because they sell out so fast.
I was going to say, that's smart thinking on her part. I know there's going to be some good entertainment there, too, both for kids and adults.
Absolutely. Since this cat is from Kurt, his name is, and he's from Fond du Lac, and he does this whole show about dinosaurs, very educational, from the egg to the dinosaur, and it's all interactive, kind of like a Jeff Dunham puppet thing.
Yeah.
And it's good for kids of all ages. It's pretty awesome to watch this guy. And then rounding out the day, we're going to have Mike Roddy and his friends from Rural Route 3. They do country and some toe tapping stuff, and they're going to be on stage at about 2 o'clock. The weather's going to be absolutely perfect because I ordered it that way.
I love it.
So, absolutely. So we got a lot going on. And, you know, this is all made possible by some of our sponsors. And Generac was one of our signature sponsors this year. So I'm just blessed that, Generac is in this community. They reached out and said, let's get together and do a partnership. So they're going to be doing kind of a job fair thing there on Saturday. So that's kind of cool. So come out, enjoy. We got a history booth. We're going to have food. We're going to have fun. We're going to dance. We're going to sing. We're going to just toe tap and see all these vendors. And it's all to honor this crazy little heirloom pepper that found its home in beautiful Beaver Dam, Wisconsin.
I love it. You know, if it brings the community together like this, then that is absolutely awesome. And I know we just threw a ton of information out there, Diana. If people forget what time something's going on or they want to check it out, where's all that information located that they can find that?
with my friend BeaverDamPepperFestival.com. You can find all the information there. Follow us on Facebook. Larry the Pepper's been out and about. He will be there, of course, on Saturday. And all the proceeds are going to benefit the Beaver Dam Ride Project for those skateboarders. So we're excited to be partnered up with them.
Well, that is fantastic, Diana. I cannot wait for Saturday. We will see you out there.
I will see you there, my friend. You have the best of the rest of the day. Thanks for everything you guys do.
Thank you. That is our pal Diana Ogle with the Park Village Shopping Center, the big Beaver Dam Pepper Festival happening this Saturday over there at the Park Village Shopping Center. We'll be back with more Hometown Today after this on 95.3. And welcome back to Hometown Today on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge. Hometown Today is presented by Professional Floor Covering, also brought to you by McKinstry's Home Furnishings in downtown Beaver Dam. We are visiting with Will Fullwetter. He is the crops educator at Dodge County UW Extension, also working with Dane County UW Extension. Been talking a lot today about agrivoltaics, and wanted to kind of put a bow on that conversation. Obviously, as you mentioned towards the beginning, Will, your guys' role in this is largely research, and then once you have got that research, you're going to educate. So as far as the research part of this goes, I mean, what have we found so far, generally speaking?
Yeah, so we have a site that we have been kind of doing small plot research on in southern Dane County. It's about 15 minutes from campus.
Okay.
And it is an Alliant Energy site that is actually on UW-Madison land.
Oh,
and
okay.
so Alliant Energy is leasing the land from them. And they've kind of put in an interesting array where they have several different what are called racking systems.
Okay.
So kind of across the landscape, you'll see solar panels that are fixed. They're not moving. They're always facing south. They're at an angle, and they're kind of larger. Then you also have ones that are tracking the sun as they go across. And so those are two different racking systems. And then that are shown at that site, at the same site, which is pretty cool. Oftentimes it's kind of the site is a solar site will be one or the other.
Sure.
And then also at that site, the fixed tilt, or the ones that aren't moving, are spaced a little bit wider. Some of the rows, to perhaps see if we could do more agriculture with wider rows in that spacing. And then finally, there are panels that are lofted about 8 feet in the air. We had talked about earlier about the potential for cows or cattle grazing under kind of lofted solar panels. And so that's trying to see, can we grow different sorts of crops? So it's really trying to encompass the diversity of racking options on one site, kind of on similar soils, so that it gives us a really unique opportunity to do research there to see which racking system is the best for doing agriculture under solar panels. So a really cool site. And what we're doing is we're kind of like, running with the idea of what is the most predominant form is sheep grazing at the moment. How can we maximize agricultural production in sheep grazing rather than trying to do something that's, a little bit less of a surefire way to go about it? So we're seeing what are the best mixes for sheep grazing in Wisconsin under these different panel configurations. So we have several different mixes that we're looking at that are all kind of established pasture mixes or pasture grasses and legumes in Wisconsin, and then also looking at alfalfa, which is the mainstay of our dairy systems. We are the dairy state. We'd be remiss to not look at alfalfa underneath these solar panels. And I talked about this all in theory until this past spring when we did plant these plots, which is exciting. It's a lot of hoops to jump through working with with the utilities and then with all the subcontractors of subcontractors. They finally got the site up and running. We established the plots, and honestly, they look really good.
Okay.
Very green pasture grasses out there. That the red clover that we put in there is bountiful. It is overtaking some of the grasses in some of the sites, and you can really see differences in the different racking systems to see because of the amount of shade that's being put on the pastures. And also we put plots without any shading kind of out in the open to see in a normal pasture system how do they perform.
Sure.
Yeah, as a bit of a control.
You've got that, control, exactly.
Exactly. And what we can see, interestingly, is that where there was more shade or orchard grass, which is a very keystone pasture species, grass species in Wisconsin, was doing better in where it was more shaded because it's a highly shade tolerant species. It established as well. And actually where there was less shade, there was a little bit in between the panels, there's a little bit less of that grass, which is interesting. I would have thought that red clover, which is also very shade tolerant, would kind of outcompete the grasses there. But orchard grass, very shade tolerant grass species, did well. It was a red clover year. So a lot of rain, wet. And so the red clover was really, like I was saying, did better than a lot of the grasses. But there's a lot of biomass out there, a lot of vegetation for sheep that they could graze. And so we actually took our first cuttings from the plots on Monday. So I was out there. I'm quite sore from doing all that sampling. Those are off to the lab to get analyzed for how much feed value can we derive from these and see if there's differences between the different racking systems and kind of configurations of the panels from a feed value perspective. And then we're also looking at yield to see, does the different configuration give us a boost in production or a drop in production, and how does that correlate with the feed value? So excited to see what those feed values come out to look like.
Yeah, that's and we should mention, when you say cutting, you're not talking about like you hopped on a mower and like you're on hands and knees for probably a pretty decent amount of time.
Exactly. My knees are fine. My hamstrings, on the other hand, I'm very concerned about how sore I was. I was out there for a long time, but yeah, the way we do this is it's not high tech at all. We have a PVC square, kind of PVC pipe that I've made into a known area of a foot. I drop that in the pasture and I clip that at 4 inches, which is our grazing level.
Okay.
I do that several different times to get kind of an idea as to what is this pasture as far as yield. And so I'm looking at it, I'm placing it kind of randomly and also kind of representative of the larger pasture that we're looking at, and then weighing that and sending it into the lab. So it is not mechanized other than me mechanizing it with my body. And it's work. It's definitely work. I was pooped after Monday.
I know we've got a couple of minutes left, and we want to kind of put a bow on this conversation and talk about a couple other things you're working on. But what kind of things are you guys planning on looking at in the future with this test site? I mean, any hopes as to what you can look at and find out?
Yeah, I mean, this test site is kind of one part of a larger network of people that are investigating this in Wisconsin, and we have people that are actually grazing sites in Wisconsin at the moment, in Fitchburg and in Fond du Lac, not far away, and in other areas in kind of northwest Wisconsin. So that is sheep actually grazing that site, and that will be yield different kind of results than what we're seeing at this highly controlled site where there aren't sheep grazing. So what we're doing on that side is trying to make some recommendations on pasture mixes and what does well with what configuration. But really the pedal to the metal is, what are grazers actually seeing on their own, on their land that they're grazing? The sheep grazing will choose different kind of species over time. So it'll be interesting to see how those develop. So kind of keep making sure I'm keeping my foot in both of those spheres as to how those grazers are faring. And then, we only did one cutting this year. There's a lot of weed pressure on this site as you're turning over all this land, taking it out of production, et cetera. So I'm excited to see next summer, when we get a full season under our belts, how throughout the whole summertime, how does the pasture mix do? There's the idea that in the shading of the panels, we won't have what's called a summer slump. And about July, when it starts to get really hot and humid, our pasture grasses will often go dormant and will not produce. But if it's a little bit shaded, if there's a little bit more water because of that shade, maybe they'll continue to barrel through and give us a really consistent yield throughout the whole summertime, which would be pretty exciting to see.
With the couple minutes we got left, I want to make sure we touch on obviously a very interesting conversation, and eager to hear more of what you end up learning in the coming months. But talk about a couple of these other projects you've got going as well. Yeah,
so the agrivoltaics project is just one of a suite of different things I'm looking at. One thing that I'm excited and have been on the show to talk about before, maybe a little bit less recently than the agrivoltaics conversation, is winter camelina, which is a new potential cover crop for Wisconsin. After corn and soybean crops, which is our predominant rotation in the state, we don't have a lot of options for a cover crop to plant that can keep the soil protected over the wintertime, help to reduce nutrient runoff and erosion. We have pretty much winter rye is most often what you'll see out there. That can have some unintended consequences, I'll use that word, in our corn the following year. It's a grass on a grass. There's a potential for disease transfer and kind of nitrogen tie-up as that winter rye decomposes after the corn planting. Camelina presents a new opportunity. It's not a grass. There's less of a disease bridge between the two, and it decomposes really quickly. So there's not a ton of it been planted in Wisconsin, and I'm working with some growers in Dodge County. I'm working with growers in Dane County to get it out on their fields to see how does it compare to winter rye, both how can it reduce nutrient runoff compared to winter rye, and then also do we see a yield drop if we're planting it in this cover crop scenario, and what is the best way to get that applied? Can we use a drone, which has become really popular in our agricultural systems, to spread that seed before the harvest of the soybeans, so then we don't have to take time planting it after the soybeans and can scoot right along to corn harvest.
Okay, gotcha.
So that's one of the projects.
Yeah.
And then also looking at winter barley as a potential crop for Wisconsin. I love beer, and so do a lot of Wisconsinites, and I want to grow the ingredients for beer here in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So trying to get winter barley to be a great crop for the state. It is not been a crop that we've been able to grow because of cold winters and a lack of breeding effort. But both of those, our winters aren't quite as severe as they used to be, and there's been a lot more breeding effort into making more winter hardy barley that is harvested earlier in the summertime, doesn't have the disease pressure that spring barley, which was the barley that was grown in Wisconsin when we grew a lot of barley, can endure. And so can this be a good crop that can switch off with winter wheat for Wisconsin, and then we can make some beer in Wisconsin with some Wisconsin-grown ingredients?
I'm all for that.
Yeah, I thought you would be.
All for that. The time has absolutely flown by today. Will, if people want to get a hold of you for anything, got more questions based on our conversation today, what's the best way to get a hold of you?
Yeah, you can call the Dodge County Extension Office. You can shoot me an email. All of that information is on the website, Dodge County Extension website. I also send out a newsletter monthly if you want to keep up with what's happening at Extension and with kind of agriculture across the state and locally, and that's you can sign up on the Dodge County Extension website.
All right, fantastic. Will Fullwater, the crop educator with Dodge County UW Extension. Always great to sit down and chat, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. Always a pleasure.
That is going to wrap things up for Hometown Today here on 95.3 WBEV, powered by Daily Dodge.